Got business with Stephen. We're going to start with the markets today because a pretty dramatic day yesterday on Wall Street. Of course, the markets are opening up here in Europe. How are things faring?
Yeah, that's right. So we've seen the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 on Wall Street wipe out all of the gains that they'd made so far this year with dramatic falls on Wall Street. A very different picture, though, in Europe today. The market's opening up at the start of trading, as you can see. We've been hearing from the European Central Bank President Mario Draghi in the past few minutes. He's been justifying the launch of their monetary stimulus programme. That's been linked into all of this market turmoil. Let's look at the currency markets, where it's had the greatest effect, and we've seen the euro fall against the dollar. It's at around a 12-year low. It's less, as you can see, €1 trading for less than $1.07, down again today. Of course, the dollar itself is also very strong, but the euro particularly weak against the dollar and the pound. Now, over in Asia today on the stock markets, it was a slightly more mixed picture. We'd seen some gains in Tokyo and in Shanghai, but Hong Kong and the Kospi in Seoul are both trading down.
Greece's international lenders starting new talks today on the country's reform plans a little later on.
Yeah, it won't be a very happy reunion with officials from the European Union, the IMF and the European Central Bank when they meet with Greek officials later. They're no longer, of course, called a troika, instead being dubbed the institutions in an effort to detoxify their image. Now, there will be meetings in Brussels, but we're told also that officials will be going to Athens from today. It's not entirely clear when they're going to arrive. Jeroen Dijsselbloem, the Eurogroup chief, said on Tuesday that they would be starting in parallel with those talks in Brussels. We can expect they are starting, at least if not today, in the coming days. The Syriza-led government, of course, didn't want those officials in Athens, but the international lenders say they have to be there to gather the relevant data on Greece's economy. Athens risks running out of cash before securing more bailout money, with more than €1 billion owed to the IMF this month. Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras set the stage for these new talks with a speech in Parliament last night. Let's take a listen.
We will work to fully honour our obligations, but at the same time, we will work to meet all unfulfilled obligations to Greece and the Greek people.
Quick look next at some of the day's other business headlines. The Spanish-language broadcaster Univision is planning to raise $1 billion in its stock market debut. The IPO expects to value the company at $20 billion. Reuters saying they've hired Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley and Deutsche Bank to help handle that launch. Toyota's hiring more than 2,200 new workers in Japan. The world's biggest car maker is ramping up hiring in administrative and engineering positions. The company also says it wants to hire more women and has unveiled a special scholarship scheme for female students studying science. And the Korean Air executive jailed over the so-called nut rage incident is facing new legal troubles. Heather Cho is being sued for emotional distress by the flight attendant who served her macadamia nuts in a packet rather than a bowl. Kim Do-hee's court filing in New York claims she was hit, shoved and threatened by Cho. Cho, of course, sentenced to 1 year in prison by a court in Seoul over that incident.
China next. Efforts to attract more foreign companies producing some rather mixed results.
So last week in China, we had the government reduce their growth target for this year to around 7%. That's the lowest in 15 years. The world's second largest economy is suffering from a slowdown as the effect of stimulus spending wears off. Free trade zones, like the first introduced in Shanghai in 2013, are meant to attract more foreign companies to set up in China. But as this report from our team in the city explains, the success has been somewhat limited.
Inaugurated in 2013, this free trade zone of Shanghai was supposed to attract foreign companies, thanks to tax advantages. But 18 months in, many of the offices haven't been rented. Foreign companies are taking their time, in part because of the untested opaque legislation in the pilot project. A worry faced by this CEO, who says that even if business is good, other issues like spotty internet access are also slowing things down.
Some websites are blocked or are only intermittently accessible. These kind of things are really harmful. China has as a target to be an innovative country. Innovation needs information, needs flow of ideas, needs flow of data. You need access to quick connections.
Tensions that are starting to be felt between Beijing and foreign companies, especially since China's beefed up its antitrust laws. Many foreign investors fear that there will be even more red tape and investigations.
Last summer, there were a number of investigations of the automotive sector that touched on some American companies, some European companies, Japanese companies as well. Among those investigations, there seemed to be not the same amount of information about Chinese companies. So the conclusion that most foreign observers brought from that was that this is aimed at foreign companies.
A lack of transparency that has some companies thinking twice about investing more in China, just as Beijing faces its lowest growth predictions in 15 years, with a target of around 7%.
And that's the business. Thank you very much to Stephen.